Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today is our Wednesday follow-up video where we address all the questions and comments from Saturday's video about sawing that big white pine log. Now before I get started on that, I'm going to move in, sit on the manure spreader because that sun is hot. It is hot here. Hot, 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 humid, miserable. So I'm going to move into the shade and we'll get started. Alright, so I got my phone out here and I'm trying to load the comments, but apparently it's a holiday weekend. And we have all these tourists up here who come up here and soak up all of our bandwidth. And basically, you leave the city to come up to the Northwoods to enjoy nature, but yet you can't put down your device. I don't get it. So when this finally loads, we'll get on to the comments. Alright, I finally got something to load here. I'm not going to be able to, questions that I can't see the whole thing. I'm not going to be able to address them fully. So I apologize because there's just no service here at all. You know, on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes into Monday, we have zero cell service. We have to go off the Wi-Fi, and even that is spotty. So I'm going to do the best I can here. Hi, Josh. How high does the top tip of your blade project above the horizontal plate? In other words, how thick of a vertical cut can that blade make? 26 inches. 26 inches is what we have. So it's a 52-inch blade. Well, 26 inches. No, it's less than that. Sorry. I'm thinking it's 23, 22 inches we get. So you got to take off 6 inches, 7 inches roughly for the saw collar, and then another half an inch. Well, inch in diameter. So we got about 8 inches we lose out of that 52. So 52 minus 8 is 44 divided by 2, 22 inches. 22 inches is what we get. Now, a lot of the times on that first cut, you're going to be coming up, you're going to be just cutting into the bark or getting up to the bark if it's a really big log. You just grab that plank, pull it back, and it snaps right off. No big deal. We've done that in the past. How far in does the log move with every stroke of the depth adjuster of the carriage? We've addressed this before, and that is infinitely variable. Whatever I want to pull it. It pretty much, you just look at the gauge. I don't know how much it moves because I've never just looked at it that way. I've always gone by my saw gauge. So whatever I pull. All right, this one, boy, I wish I could get the whole thing. Your willingness to potentially sacrifice a camera gives us some great shots of interesting things and viewing angles we would never otherwise be able, must be 2C, and I don't know what was after that. And so, yeah, I've sacrificed a few cameras on the mill. I'm not sure how many, but I remember one that tipped over, went down into the auger. I was really looking forward to that footage. It destroyed the footage. I lost everything. It ate the card, it ate everything. It just crunched it up and spit it out in pieces up here at the auger. So that was disappointing, but I've actually lost a few cameras on the sawmill. It's cost of doing business. You know, and the nice thing with where I'm putting the camera and getting these angles, it's helping me see problems that I wouldn't otherwise see. So it's a good thing all around. Have you ever run across old bullets inside of trees that you are cutting? I would think that the saw blade would have no issue with a lead bullet as it is softer than... And then I lose it. It says read more, and I'm not going to click on it because I might not get you back. We have sawed through bullets. A few. Quite a few. Some jacketed, copper jacketed. It doesn't affect them. You don't even know until... You might hear a little tick, maybe, but you really don't hear it. And then it's kind of cool when Carl pulls it off and he's like, hey, there's a bullet here. It's the nails and the screws that, them you hear. All right, this one I wish I could see the whole thing, but I kind of remember it. Was looking at what was keeping the carriage in the track and only see a flat wheel without flanges. Then there was a video shot of the back, and I see I think he was talking about angle iron with a V roller, and the angle iron welded with the legs down to create a V. That's what holds it up there. I'm going to grab the camera, I'll show you, bring you in and show you that. Okay, so what we got here, we have the blade We have a flat rail. It's just a flat running surface. And then we have a piece of angle iron welded up like that. I'll bring you around to the wheels. We have a flat wheel up front, and he did mention the wipers. There's the wipers. They're just a piece of rubber conveyor belt bolted on. And then, in the back, our guide rail, we also have wipers, but not as extensively. So we really don't need them back here. It doesn't matter a whole lot. As you can see on the flat rail, I've got them in front and behind every wheel, if you can see that there. So wiper, 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 wiper. And back here, front and back of the carriage. That's it. Because everything more or less falls off. We don't have problems. And the reason for putting the V-rail in the back, the guide rail, is should we ever get a log turner, which I don't want, I don't need, we're not going to do it, that log turner comes up and it lifts that log to turn it like this. And that could lift, and well, they do, they lift the carriage. If your guide rail is out here, the front rail, and you lift that carriage, what's to keep that whole carriage from going and derailing? That's why I put the guide rail in the back. A lot of the new commercial mills are also built this way, with the flat rail in the front and the guide rail in the back, or two guide rails. This is a lot more forgiving, going a single guide rail, because when you put it all, we put the track all together, all we had to do was build the track and then lay all this on there and set a string. So the track was already constructed, it was pretty rigid. We had it laid out, set a string, and then line up everything to guide it, and tack it down, and then the flat rail, just tack it. No big issue with alignment, and it's been working really well. Beautiful lumber. Looks like that big log was just about all the mill could handle, but the results are great. If we could have handled a little bit bigger, but it, like I said earlier, we would have to, that first cut or two, we'd have to grab at the bottom of the board, pull it back and just break it off, or trim it with a chainsaw. We've done that. But it gets to be too much to physically handle for Carl and I. So that was about as big as we really want to go. We have gone, I think, gone bigger, but I don't remember doing it on this mill. I think we did it on a different mill. What size were those wide boards at the end and the thicker board of the same width? So the boards we were sawing there were 10-inch and 6-inch. So we got, when we stacked them, that bigger board, or the bigger board on the bottom to cut all our 1-bys off of, and then we stacked it with a 6-inch board. So it was 10-inch and 1-inch, or 6-inch, and then the final cut is always a 2-inch board. Never anything less than a 2-inch board, so that way you got enough on the head block holding it. That's a safety thing. You just don't want to go any thinner, because you run the risk of it popping out like that, or you run a lot of risk of a lot of problems. I hope Carl is wearing cut-proof gloves working that close to the blade. He's nowhere near the blade. Not even close. And honestly, I think cut-proof gloves would be even worse, because you would run the risk of, if you did get close enough to catch it in something, it's not going to tear. It's not going to rip. It's going to just grab and hold you in there. You got some really nice wide boards from that big white pine. Your thoughts on whether you prefer sawing smaller logs or have more large ones? Smaller is easier. Smaller is easier. We can go a little faster. That big cut, when we stacked those, you saw the feed rate was less. That's because I didn't have enough horsepower with the tractor. So smaller definitely goes a lot faster. They're both fun, but definitely smaller ones. It's just easier on us. That log made the old M bark a little. It's a Super M. It's a little more power than an M. Maybe you've answered this before, but do you plan on ever building a kiln of any sort? Nope. We considered it early on. We looked into buying a 20-foot shipping container with the doors on the side full width, so you could just fork a bundle in it and have a boiler set up to just cook it. But it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. We air dry. That stuff, we get it down, weather like this, that stuff we saw there a week ago is going to be down around 8-10%. It's going to be very dry. So no, there's no reason to kiln dry. At least not at this point in time. What size lumber are you cutting it to? Looks like 1x6. We had 1x6, 1x8, and 1x10s. What happened to the other parts of that big tree? Well, let me show you. So some more of that tree is either here on the skidway, stuff we've cut up, or more up in the pile way up there. So there is more. There's another big one in there, not quite as big. I'm gonna guess that's the next one up, but that's where it all is. The rest of it got chipped and sent to, we have a power plant in the region that runs wood chips, burns wood chips. All right, and I think the last one here, how long will that white pine last, and do you treat it with anything? Keep it dry, it'll last forever. And no, we don't treat it with anything. Just air dry it, and if you're gonna put it in a building, you know, like we did here with the red pine, we just sawed it, air dried it, nailed it up, and put the stain on it. But I've got stuff I put up with no stain that it's aging, it's turning gray, but it still looks good. Still looks good, still solid. So nope, nothing. We don't treat it with anything, and it'll last forever if you keep it dry. Okay, here is one more. At first I was wondering why you stacked the top piece with an offset to the right. Once you started sawing, it became clear. It should have became clear the second we threw it up there. It wouldn't move. It was too heavy. That's where it landed, and that's where it stayed. Otherwise, we would have stacked it more on top in line. No, it was too frickin' heavy. And with that roller table in there, I couldn't get in enough to get under it, to lift it. Carl could on his end, but I just couldn't get to it, so we just left it. Screw it, run it, saw it, it'll work. Well, I hope I answered everybody's questions as best I could. Considering I couldn't really get, I'm trying to go back and see what the next video coming is, and I can't even get to it. There's just no service. That's what happens on these weekends up here in the Northwoods when people flock up here to get away from the city, and then they sit on their phones and don't even enjoy the outdoors. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But, oh well. So, next video, I think we're working on the sawmill shed again. It's going to be Saturday, so another little process that, a design change, if you will. So stay tuned, that's going to be a good one. And then after that, I don't have anything right now. I'm working on a few possibilities, but we'll see how it goes. We got a lot going on here in my life. To film videos, it's kind of tough. So, but I'm going to keep going, try as I can. So I hope you enjoyed this one. And until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time.
Too dumb to quit, too proud to cry, still grinding steel under a fading sky. The last machine shop in a frozen hell, just me